This is a special chapter. It has a lot of lab values that can get a bit overwhelming. You have been warned. Chapter 6, Tempus Fugit. A week passed as Harold drew more blood from Iada. It had been filled with daily silence as he placed his warm hands on her cold skin. She no longer closed her eyes to his. It was only their lack of conversation that held subtle malice. She found him irritating, or so Harold thought. Michelle stormed onto the laboratory floor with a folder in one hand and an office phone in the other. She had on a silver dress suit. Harold thought he recognized it, but decided to not mention it. Michelle waved the vanilla folder in her hand. "It's rotation time," her words implying more than her enthusiastic smile. She loved causing organized chaos. "What exactly does that mean?" Harold asked the obvious question. Michelle ignored it. "I have your new assignments on this sheet. Make sure you check in with me before proceeding with any new testing. At this phase, you should be doing the same thing with a different partner." Harold understood. He would soon be losing time with Iada, his head lowered. "Don't worry, Harold. I'm not leaving. I'm only moving across the aisle." Iada's soft voice raised Harold's spirits. Michelle walked up to Harold's station to give him a personal copy of the new pairing roster. "Because you're the lead researcher." She slapped the paper down on the desk. Harold heard a girlish squeal coming from the main sheet left posted on the bulletin board. There was a quick rush of wind next to Harold's right shoulder. The scent of patchouli and herbs invaded his nose. It was putrid. "I'm so happy. We get to work together for the next few weeks. Are you happy?" Paige asked in a giddy, infantile tone. What was that? Harold was confused as to why he noticed Paige's movements and not Iada's. "Harold, do you remember what I said about balance placed in the way we all move?" Iada turned to Harold. "Yes." Harold didn't know where Ida was going, but he ran with it. "I take it back. She would be the exception." Ida got up and began to walk away. "The bus too?" Harold stood and called out. Paige didn't know what to say. She remained silent. Ida stopped but didn't turn around. "Definitely the bus. There's no doubt about that." Paige smiled eagerly at Harold. "Why are you talking about public transportation?" She paused. Her face dropped. "Don't tell me you don't have a car, do you?" Harold didn't know how to respond to such a double negative sentence, so he chose not to. "Yeah, I'm real happy to be your partner, too." He faked a small smile. Paige quickly sat down on Harold's lap and put her left arm around his shoulders. She leaned into his right ear. "Now we get to have some fun," she whispered. Ida stopped walking in her tracks. "Maybe later tonight we can do a little of our own research into my body." Paige was being very forward. Ida didn't move. She was waiting for something. "Paige," Harold sat, backing away from her. "I'm here to take some of your blood, not to flirt. Sure, you can hurt me too." "I don't care." Paige was suggesting many things with her subtext. "I'm only going to use a needle. It's what the other researchers have all used. It's nothing special," Harold noted. "I don't care what you use to poke me. It's all the same to me how you do it." Paige smiled and leaned back into Harold's personal space. "But it's sad to hear that you would refer to it as nothing special when I'm sure it's anything but." Harold jumped up from her chair. "Paige, I don't think you understand what I'm here to do." Paige crossed her arms behind her back and swayed back and forth with her hips. "And what exactly is that, Harold?" Iada partially turned to listen more to what was going on. "I'm here to prove you don't exist. That vampires are just fairy tales used to scare the world to sleep." Harold's face was cruel and he knew his words hurt Paige dearly. "I'm not here to make friends. I'm here to—" "Do what exactly?" Ida appeared in front of Harold. She wanted his answer. "What?" Harold wasn't sure of the question. "Why did you come to this point in your life, Harold? Of all the things that you could have been, what led you here?" Ada's words struck Harold hard. Harold couldn't answer. He was speechless. "Paige, I think you need to leave for now," Ida told her in a commanding voice. "But he didn't ask me to." Paige wanted what she had come for. I'm pretty sure I can prove him wrong more than you can. Take your wilted flower and let this man make up his own mind. Ida insulted Paige. Of course, Paige was cut off. I don't want you, Paige. I just need to study you, that's all. Harold snapped. Paige backed away, startled at what she had heard. She had never been rejected before. She stormed off, pouting. Thanks, Harold said to Ida. For what? You were the one that refused her advances. Ida grinned at Harold. You know you didn't answer my question. What question? Harold asked. We'll have to work on that memory of yours, you know. Ida sighed. Why a researcher? Didn't you want to be anything else by the time you were 30? I'm older than that, Harold defended himself. I know, Ida rebuked. Harold thought about it and sat back down as he exhaled. Ida found her way to the second lab chair across from him. I wanted to become a doctor, Harold admitted. Why don't you? Ida pried. I took a different path, I guess. I shacked up with the wrong woman that used me for her career instead of allowing me to pursue mine. Harold gulped, finally letting himself hear what Jenna had been telling him for years. I didn't ask that, Harold. Ida leaned in and stared directly into Harold's eyes. I want to know why you don't try and become one now. Lots of reasons. Harold was frustrated by the question. Such as, Ida raised an eyebrow. Time, money, drama, Harold sighed. What drama does a man of your nature keep in tow? Ida doubted Harold's excuses. No girlfriend, Harold said it. And what would a girl do to change your life? Ida wanted more of an answer. Stabilization, Harold said quickly and under his breath. Girls can't bring that level of order to men. Only a woman can, Ida informed. Then I need a woman, Harold blurted out. Have anyone in mind? Maybe. Ida's blank stare unnerved Harold. Who? Harold's throat tightened. Actually, Ida broke eye contact. She won't do for you. Why? Harold hadn't taken his eyes away. You don't believe she exists? Ida frowned at Harold. And you want to prove it to the world. Harold didn't know what to say. Besides, you don't really need a woman to correct your life. You only need an idea, a direction to your life to aim for. Ida smiled, breaking the tension. I told you, I can't until I get the other two sorted out. Harold had kept up. Time and money are nothing, Ida said confidently. In my world they are, Harold raised his voice. In my world they aren't. Ida's voice became soft and audible only to Harold. A vampire has time. We accumulate wealth naturally. All we need is direction, and we are set. Ida searched Harold's face for a reaction. Harold was waiting for Ida's well-thought-out comment to break the mood again. There was none. He had to say something. After a moment of contemplation, he spoke. Then it's a shame I don't believe in vampires. It seems if I were one, everything would be perfect. No, Harold, you believe in us. It's us that don't currently believe in you. Ida stood up. Harold was confused. What? Was that a test? No, Harold. Ida turned back to the hall she was about to go down when Paige was still irritating her. But you failed either way. Perplexed, Harold sat in his chair, partnerless and alone for the night. 2 months passed as Harold continued to watch the others go in and out of the bar across the street during the nightly lunch breaks. He had become depressed. Paige was reassigned to Ryan, and he had been told to compile the data they had collected thus far to keep him busy. Harold found himself at his desk more evenings than not, looking over the vampire's medical files. Ida's was open as he decided to peruse it. First name, Ieda. Last name, not recorded blood type, AB negative birth date, July 1st gestation period, 3 days onset of unique specialty, immediate eyes, purple, no iris hair, black, short and straight skin, pale Caucasian visual condition, unremarkable, no scarring or appearance of abnormal skin contaminants. 28 black metal grommets have been surgically fixed to the skin with no sign of infection or deterioration. Description of unique specialty. Subject is able to steal the pain of others and inflict it upon herself. Defining characteristics: no iris. Fangs: 1.8 centimeters fangs on top, 1.15 centimeters fangs on lower. Metal grommets affixed to skin. Average temperature: 64.2 F, 98.6 F. Pulse: 9 BPM, 60 BPM resting. Blood pressure: 24/8 120 systolic divided by 80 dystolic. Laboratory values: normal human values listed for comparison. Red blood cell count: 8.7 m's for where Weller, 3.8 minus 5.1 m's for Weller. White blood cell count: 12.1 K for millimeter, 3.8 minus 11.0 K for millimeter. 3 hemoglobin, 27 grams per dl, 11 minus 16 grams per dl. Hematocrit, 32%, 47% coagulation. ACT, 4 seconds, 90 minus 130 seconds. APTT, 0.2246 seconds, 21 minus 35 seconds. Platelets, 2.3 million divided of mLirs, 140,000 minus 450,000 divided mLir. Bleeding time, 8 seconds, 3 minus 7 minutes. Thrombin time, 0.0017 seconds, 11-15 seconds. Hemodynamic parameters: cardiac index, 0.2 Ls per minute per meter, 2.5 minus 4.2 Ls divided by min m2. Cardiac output, 0.37 lpm, 4 minus 8 lpm. Mean arterial pressure, 2 millimeters Hg, 70 minus 105 millimeters Hg. Stroke volume, 5 milliliters per beat, 60 minus 100 milliliters per beat. Arterial values: pH 10.05, 735, 745, O2 saturation, 100%, 96.100%. Venous values: pH 10.83, 7.31, 7.41, O2 saturation, 31%, 60 to 85%. General chemistry: alkaline phosphatase 177 U per liter, 32 minus 110. ULA ammonia, 18 micromoles per liter, 11 minus 35 micromoles per liter. Calcium, 28 milligrams per day, 8 minus 11 milligrams per day. Carbon dioxide, 4 millicoup per liter, 2134 milliglucose, 3206 milligrams per day, 65 minus 99 milligrams per day. Iron, 239 micrograms per day, 52 minus 169 micrograms per day. Lactic acid, 0.05 MEq Lal, 0.4 minus 2.3 MEq per liter. Osmolarity, 452 mecumers per kilogram, 276 minus 295 mecumers per kilogram. Potassium, 5.7 MEq per liter, 3.5 minus 5.5 MEq per liter. Sodium, 380 MEq per liter, 135 minus 148 MEq per liter. Cholesterol, 31 milligrams per deciliter, 30 minus 75 milligrams per deciliter. Triglycerides, 167 mg/dl, 35 minus 135 milligrams per dl. Harold noticed the stroke volume of Ieda's heart. It was very low. After searching through the file, a few more facts stood out. Ieda's blood was different. It had a high sugar value like a diabetic, but a very low overall circulation rate. He wanted to know a little more about it. There was a knock on Harold's desk as he stared at the file before him. It was Ieda. Her purple eyes were bright and soft. She smiled. "I need to ask you something," Harold blurted out. "May I sit first?" Ieda was surprised by Harold's sudden outburst. "Yes, but that's not it," Harold quickly said. Ida sat down. "That was nice." "What was?" Harold's train of thought was derailed. "I didn't expect you to use that play on words." "It was well crafted and witty," Ida noted. "It seems you have a knack for learning after all." She grinned, licking the edge of her tooth. "What is it you wanted to know?" "How does your blood taste?" Harold was being forward again. "That's a very personal question," Ieda remarked. "No, it isn't. It's simple science," Harold argued. "In my world, it's an intimate subject that is handled with care and, most importantly, tact." Ida reprimanded Harold. "Know your place and choose your words carefully." "You are speaking to someone that's not human. I know that now." Harold cut Ida off. "So you still don't believe I'm a vampire yet?" Ida laughed. "No, but I recognize that your body doesn't work the same way as mine," Harold stated. You have no idea how right you are, Harold, Iada chuckled. Didn't you have something greater to ask me? Yes, I did. Harold shuffled over his notes. Since your heart beats very slowly and you have a very high sugar content to your blood, spit it out. Iada wanted the question, not the explanation. Since your blood lingers in your body for long periods of time, does your blood ferment? Harold stared directly at Ada. Ada leaned into the desk. Are you asking if my blood is like alcohol? No, I'm asking if your blood is like wine, Harold corrected. Ada placed her left hand onto the back of Harold's. It was cold and soft. It sent a chill down his back that made his heart race. Ada lowered her eyes. I'm impressed. That was smooth. What was? Harold didn't make the connection. Ada removed her hand. Never mind. I have a theory. As you age, your blood becomes more fermented and stronger somehow. That's why you are immune to most infection. Your blood has high levels of alcohol that kills anything it interacts with. Harold was proud of his hypothesis. You're half right, Ada pointed out, vaguely. About which part? Harold wanted clarification. Does it matter? Ada was beginning to enjoy messing with Harold. If I tell you now, what more would you have to test? Everything, Harold contested. I would need to sample your soft skin, your supple lips, your amazing eyes. Harold, Ada stood up. That's kind of you to say. Did I do something wrong? Harold got up and reached for Iada's hand. It was cold in his, almost delicate. Iada stopped, letting Harold's hand warm hers. It's a shame you never pursued your dreams. What does that have to do with anything? Harold asked. My decisions. Ada let go of Harold's hand and walked away. Harold turned back to reach for her file to discuss more issues he wanted to bring up. When he looked back, Ada was gone. 2 days passed. Harold began to regret starring at the bar across the street. He sat back in his small room, pondering what Ada meant in their last conversation. A loud knock shook the door and startled Harold. Mr. Thompson, we need to talk. It was Michelle. She was obviously agitated about something. Harold took a deep breath and answered the door. What is it? Michelle held a stack of papers in her hands and gestured with her eyes that they were not for her. Harold took the files and set them down in his room next to his bed. What are these? More cases, Michelle said sternly. As in more people? Harold was concerned about his sudden influx of work. Yes. We've had 6 other teams across the world gathering blood on vampires and half-vampires, Michelle said firmly. You will need to analyze this data as soon as possible. I need to send back important preliminary information to corporate. Half-vampires? Since when did they have half-vampires? Harold was feeling overwhelmed. Do your job and note it all in your reports. Michelle didn't want to hear any complaining. What report? Harold was caught off guard. He wasn't sure what Michelle meant. The diary you're writing in each night is part of this study. Michelle scanned Harold's blank face, the one that you were supposed to begin a few months ago. Harold's face became flush. Just start on it and fill in as much as you can remember tonight. I don't want to have to explain why my lead researcher didn't turn in a crucial part of the study after all of this is done. Michelle sighed and walked off. Harold stepped back, closing the door behind him. Knock, knock. A familiar voice called out from behind the door. Harold immediately reopened the door. Ellen was standing, waiting. What do you want? Harold was already tired. To help you with your work. Ellen elaborated. The more knowledge you have, the less worry everyone else will have about you getting it wrong. Harold thought about it for a second. You have a very good point there. Come in. Ellen closed the door behind him and sat down in a chair across from Harold. His long black hair danced on the backing, making a swish. Where should we begin? Ellen inquired. What are half-vampires? Harold took out his notepad and pen. How do they differ from a vampire? Ellen smiled, lowered his eyes, sighed, and returned them to Harold's attention. You don't know much, do you? He peered at Harold's bewildered expression. No, that's apparent. We'll just get started then. He adjusted his red tie, straightening it. Vampires are the result of a human and vampire having a tryst that is carried to term. You mean getting knocked up? Harold's blunt words were a mockery of Ellen's poetic voice. It's not as inelegant as that, but yes, it's sex that brings a child into this world through normal means, Ellen continued. A vampire is a biological accident. They are incomplete as a vampire and treated as such in our society. You mean they're bastard children? Harold's sustained crudity appalled Ellen. Ellen sighed, rolling his eyes briefly. They are outcasts because they are physical evidence that a vampire was unfaithful to their kind in bringing a child into existence. As a result, most of them are killed at birth. Is that why no one has heard about them? Harold extrapolated. Yes. Would you want everyone in history to know about your secrets? Ellen illustrated. Dirty laundry. Now we're getting somewhere. Harold ruined it. Ellen coughed. So does a vampire happen every time a vampire and human do it? Are there any mutations, freaks of nature? Harold wanted more. No, the vampire is the mutation, Ellen told Harold. So it's absolute? 100%. No. The XXXY chromosomes won't allow that. There is a 75% chance of a vampire from a human-vampire union, a little over an 18% chance of a vampire, and a 6% chance of a human birth. Ellen was exacting in his words. He wanted everything to be written correctly in Harold's notes. So does that work the same way for two vampires? With a swap between the vampire and vampire? Harold theorized as he stopped taking notes. No, it's different still. Ellen gestured with his eyes for Harold to keep writing. It's about an 88% chance of a vampire and 12% for a vampire. Though that number decreases with the age of the two vampires involved. Age protects purity in our world, so it's bad even if the vampire is natural, Harold wondered. If you told someone you were a doctor and dressed like... Ellen looked Harold up and down. He purposely made Harold uncomfortable. What would people believe? It's the same for us. The appearance holds value. You don't think I look like a doctor? Harold was hurt. Why? What's the matter? Do you think otherwise? Ellen pointed out a major flaw in Harold's reasoning. Dress the part, learn the methods, and then you will have the pride to carry yourself as one. Harold thought about Ellen's words carefully. Don't you have a few more questions about vampires? Ellen proposed. One moment. Harold rustled through one of the folders, searching for any useful data he could postulate with. Is their heart rate as low as yours? No, they have a high rate. It's the same for their temperature. It's constant at 100, Ellen told Harold. So that's normal for them? What's a fever for them? Harold asked. That is their fever, Ellen explained. They don't have the same defenses as we do. Since their blood is mostly human, it has to defend itself in creative ways. A fever is the body's natural reaction to infection. In a vampire, the blood uses it as a type of wall to protect itself from potential viruses and bacteria. So do vampires ever develop a fever? Can they? Harold wanted details. No, we have a natural alcohol that protects us, Ellen proudly stated. So I was right, Harold smiled, and the older you get, the stronger it becomes. That would also make your cells stronger due to the fact that they would have to live in such an environment. That's an elegant solution to health, poisoning the body to keep it able. It would seem you have figured out a great deal about us, Ellen complimented Harold. No, there's a lot I haven't pegged yet. Like why there is such a difference in temperature between you and the others. Harold looked for Ellen's medical file and searched. First name? Edward last name? Meadows blood type? B negative birth date. August 27th gestation period. 3 days onset of unique specialty. Immediate eyes, brown contacts, real eyes unknown, hair, black, long and straight skin, Asian, Caucasian visual condition, unremarkable, no scarring or appearance of abnormal skin contaminants. Description of unique specialty. Subject displays ability to perceive events before fruition. Defining characteristics, no iris. Fangs, 2.1 centimeter fangs on top, 1.45 centimeters fangs on lower. Average temperature, 66.8 F, 98.6 F pulse, 14 BPM, 60 BPM resting. Blood pressure 32/19 120 systolic divided by 80 diastolic laboratory values. Normal human values listed for comparison. Red blood cell count 8.9 m's was mucload, 4.2 minus 5.6 m's was mucload. White blood cell count 10 khl miller if 3.8 minus 11.0 k divider miller vri hemoglobin 23 grams per dl 18 grams per dl hematocrit HCT 36% 39 minus 54% coagulation ACE ETT 11 seconds 90 minus 130 seconds APTT 1.6798 seconds 21 minus 35 seconds platelets 1.09 million devalidations of LLR, 140,000 minus 450,000 devalidations bleeding time, 19 seconds 3 minus 7 minutes, thrombin time, 2 seconds 11-15 seconds, hemodynamic parameters. Cardiac index, 0.43 L's per minutes per meter 2, 2.5 minus 4.2 L's divided by minute, eb2. Cardiac output, 0.60 LPM, 4-8 LPM mean arterial pressure, 3.1 millimeters Hg, 70-105 millimeters Hg. Stroke volume, 6.2 millimeters divided by beat. Arterial values pH, 10.07, 735, 745, O2 saturation, 99%, 96, 100% venous values, pH 10.64, 7.31, 7.41, O2 saturation 43%, 60 to 85%. General chemistry, alkaline phosphatase 152 U/liter 32. 110 use per liter. Ammonia, 29 micromoles per liter, 11-35 micromoles per liter. Calcium, 20 milligrams per liter, 8-11 micromilligrams per liter. Carbon dioxide, 6 millicromic per liter, 1 per liter, 24 micro per liter. Glucose, 3 to 23 4 milligrams per liter, 65-99 milligrams per liter. Iron, 197 micrograms per liter, L52-169 micrograms per liter. Lactic acid, 0.09 microl per liter, 0.4-2.3 microl per liter. Osmolarity, 407 microls mers per kilogram, 276-295 micrors per calcium, 5.4 microls per liter, 3.5-5.5 microls per liter. Sodium, 1409 microls per liter, 135 microls-14.8 microls per liter. Cholesterol, 70 milligrams per decal, 30-75 milligrams per decal. Triglycerides, 100 milligrams per decil L of 40-170 milligrams per decil L liter. There's a 2.6-degree gap between you and her. Why? Harold put down the file. She's much older than I am, Ellen said simply. Harold glanced back at the file. Oh, I didn't realize you had just turned a few months ago. How did it feel? Is this part of your study? Asking such a personal question? Ellen didn't enjoy talking about his day of turning. Well, yes, it is part of the study. It all is. Even this conversation, all of our interactions count as being on record. Harold's face begged an answer. Well, my sire made it as unsensuous and painless as possible. He asked me to remain still as he placed a needle into my skin. Ellen was cut off. No fangs. He didn't suck you dry. Harold was heated over his own misconceptions of what a vampire would do. Marin thought it would be inappropriate for us to get too close while Crystal was watching, Ellen explained. You mean Demetrius Marin? The one in our group? Harold checked. His name is Demetrius Del Marin. He prefers to be called Marin, Ellen corrected Harold. Regardless, he is the one who made me what I am, finally. Finally? Did he take a long time to decide? Harold was inquisitive. Ellen hesitated. He chose to turn me years ago when we met. There was simply a complication that needed to be eliminated first. A complication? Harold didn't understand. Someone had to die, Ellen admitted. Harold was startled. He wasn't sure he heard Ellen right. It was a young boy, Ellen said softly. That's not helping my opinion of the situation any. Harold was uncomfortable about the conversation. Don't worry, the problem solved itself. Ellen's words weren't soothing Harold's mind. Don't worry, he didn't die. He only became something else that was no longer a direct threat to me being a vampire. With that obstacle removed, Marin sired me immediately. Harold exhaled. I'm glad to hear that. Harold, let me ask you something. Ellen paused, finding the words. Have you ever wondered what it would be like to be a vampire? Not really. Harold was being honest. You never dreamed about living hundreds of years? Ellen was curious. Don't you mean forever? You guys don't die of natural causes as far as I've gathered. Harold found Ellen's phrasing odd. No, I mean exactly what I said. We're not immortal, Harold. Ellen chuckled to himself. In the words of a friend, being a vampire only means you can take a lot of damage before you die, or something to that effect. She was scolding a child at the time after all. He regained his composure. We all die. It's just that vampires usually have the luxury of choosing their death at the end of a long, fulfilling life. When you put it that way, no. I don't know. Harold thought about it. I guess I don't think I'd have enough to do with such a life. I'm only a lab crawler. It's not like I'm a doctor or anything. And if you were? Ellen cried. If you were a doctor right now and would be able to help people for hundreds of years to come, would that change things? But I'm not, Harold argued. If you were, Ellen wanted his answer. Then yes, I think I might be interested, Harold blurted out. Ellen seemed very pleased with himself. He had pulled teeth to get it, but it was there, the answer he had demanded. Why? Harold had an idea why. He wanted to confirm his suspicions. Ellen stood up and reached into his left jacket pocket. Here, this is for you. He pulled out a large, heavily illustrated card with 3 swords on the front, piercing a heart, and handed it to Harold. What's this? Harold said as he looked at the card. Is this a tarot card? As he raised his head, Ellen was gone. The door was shut, and he was merely not in the room. Thanks. A deep sigh later, Harold tucked it into the corner of his notepad and laid back, exhausted from the talks he just had. It was 5:48 a.m. The night was over and it was time to sleep, so he quickly passed out. At 8:26 p.m., Harold woke up to the sound of someone beating down his door again. Harold, get up. You're missing it. It was Ryan. Harold got up and headed towards the door. He was able to unlock it just before it swung open and nearly hit him in the face. What's the hurry, Ryan? There, standing in the doorway, was Jenna. I should have known you'd be the only one breaking down my door at this time of night. Harold was groggy. He didn't sleep well. There were still thoughts of Vampire and Vampire Lab results swimming in his head. That doesn't matter now. You need to come quickly. Jenna pulled on Harold's right arm. Why? What's going on? Harold didn't want to go. Trust me, Harold. You won't want to miss this. Ellen told me you were quite interested in human vampire progeny. This should be enough to wake you up for a week. Or enough to give you an erection for a month. Adonis passed by on his way to the meeting room. Harold shook his head. Never mind him. He's just nervous about the news. Ryan lightened the mood. What news? Harold was more curious now. Well, he might be a Ryan was cut off. Penny's pregnant, Jenna busted out with excitement. She's what? Harold was startled by the information. Who? When? How? Jenna made her way down the hall and turned back to answer. Has it been that long, Harold? Really? Don't mind her. Ryan put his right arm around Harold and escorted him to the meeting room. Jenna hurried, running nearly full tilt ahead of them. Ryan seemed calm, while Harold was intrigued to the point he was shaking a bit. They arrived as Penny was sitting in the far corner, surrounded by Cherry, Ellen, Crystal, Adonis, Laurel, and Michelle. Crystal had his left ear to Penny's stomach. You'll never be able to hear anything, you know that, right? Ellen remarked. Then why don't you try, little youngling? Crystal smiled and continued listening. So how far along are you? Harold shouted from across the large room. I'm not really sure. Maybe 2 months. Penny's soft, innocent voice echoed around the room. Harold could see why Adonis and Laurel were so fond of her charms. She had a way about her that simply invited an advance. We're hoping she's a full 2 months along, Laurel spoke up. What does that matter? Harold asked as he walked closer. Jenna smiled and hugged Penny in her white unbuttoned lab coat. I'm so happy for you. It means the paternity test will be accurate, Laurel said with a grin. You mean you might not be the father? Harold looked around the room, first to Ryan. Don't look at me, Ryan exclaimed. Harold turned to Marin. You don't know me too well, do you? Marin calmly said while sitting in his chair, separate from the others. Harold faced Adonis. Took you long enough. I thought I was going to have to gesture to Penny's belly with my dick to give you a more direct hint. Every female in the room, except for Jenna, shied away. Jenna high-fived Adonis. It would normally take that much to get him to notice. She chuckled and went back to small talk with Penny. So you and Laurel were with Penny. Harold didn't want to finish. At the same time, Adonis completed the train of thought. In the same bed, Laurel added. You two are sick, Harold commented. Hey, I didn't mind. Penny cut in. Good for you. Crystal hugged Penny. Back to the test. Has it come in yet? Harold changed the subject. Let me check. Jenna walked over to a blood centrifuge on one of the lab stations. So? Adonis asked. Harold sighed, thinking regardless of the outcome, it would be a bad result. Adonis was not the type to be a parent. The same went for Laurel. He was too set as a rock star. Jenna was about to say it when Adonis spoke up. No matter who the father is, I want Penny to know that I will still support her in whatever she chooses. Adonis's words shocked the group. Everyone was expecting something crude and uncivilized, and of course I'm still gonna nail you when Laurel isn't around. Jenna punched Adonis's left shoulder and finished reading the result. It's good you think that way, because it's Laurel's. Ha! I told you that coin toss was going to mean a lot more past that first night, Laurel shouted at Adonis. Damn right, I'll never settle for tails again, Adonis remarked. I don't want to know. Michelle walked away. That's too much information, guys. Cherry went off to her scheduled lab partner for the night. You know I'm a bit appalled that you guys would use Penny as a toy like that, Harold commented. Really? I didn't mind. Penny smiled. Harold shrugged off the thought of Penny in the same bed as Adonis and Laurel. He wanted to change the subject. Are you going to allow testing? Oh, of course, Penny answered immediately. That was part of the deal. Deal? Harold wasn't sure if he heard correctly. Yes, we all agreed that if I became pregnant, the baby would come to term as it was, then it would be turned after the birth. Penny smiled as if it was an everyday event. Harold gave Adonis the evil eye, staring him down. What? Adonis defended himself. It was Laurel's idea, not mine. He's the more responsible wild man, not me. Harold turned to Laurel with the same animosity. Calm down. I arranged this for her protection and because she was already willing before we had sex with her, Laurel nonchalantly explained. Harold didn't like the way Laurel laid it out. So she was for this from the beginning? Since when? Since the second night that we all went out to the bar, Ida chimed in. You don't know because you never go. Ida's words rang through Harold. She seemed to have a way that reached his very soul. He hadn't spoken since the other day. He had hoped to clear a few things before talking again. Privately at that, Ida approached Harold and whispered into his left ear. Maybe you should come down with us tonight. She stepped back and faced Penny. Maybe you can prevent twins on the next impressionable young girl that happens to agree to a threesome with these two. Penny lowered her head, bashfully. You're right, Laurel spoke up. We should invite Harold tonight. Harold was confused. How did you? It's the ears, dearie. They can hear everything we can't. Crystal interrupted. Then it's a yes? Laurel asked again. Yes. Harold was relieved. He was being recognized in the group, finally. Demetrius Delmarin walked up to Harold. I need to speak to you. Harold nodded and followed Marin back to his small, cluttered room. Ida made eye contact with Harold before leaving, as if to accept his departure. It's about Zach Giver, Marin said almost silently once they reached the quiet location. The vampire? What about him? I glanced at his chart yesterday and talked about it with Ellen. Is there a problem? Harold was intrigued as to why Marin wanted to discuss a half-vampire all of a sudden. Not if you keep his name out of the final report you submit to Cillian Industries. Marin was cold in his instructions. You must never mention him outside of this laboratory. Harold had a feeling it was non-negotiable. And if? You won't, Marin was direct. You will not. Harold's face dropped, understanding that Marin was serious. Okay, I'll cite someone else in my notes. Any other names I should omit? Only his. Marin sounded almost cheerful in the smallest way expressible. Is that all? Harold wanted to make sure. Yes, that will do nicely. Marin turned back down the hall. Then I'll see you later? Harold called out. Marin stopped short without facing Harold. She invited you. Didn't you pick up on that? Harold's silence was enough of an answer. Ieda has decided that you are welcome in our presence. Do not take such a liberty for granted. It will not be given again, and is never done freely. Marin slightly turned back to Harold. Half of his face visible was in the lights coming down from overhead. Speak to her. She is worth the effort. He walked away, returning to the makeshift celebration. Harold scrambled to get into his room. He rummaged through his stack of files and eventually held it in his hand. It read Zach Giver. First name, Zach. Last name, Giver. Blood type, a positive birth date, March 4th, year classified, gestation period, 14 years, onset of unique specialty, puberty, eyes, brown hair, black short, skin, Caucasian, visual condition, unremarkable, no scarring or appearance of abnormal skin contaminants. Description of unique specialty, subject displays ability to read inner thoughts of others. Defining characteristics, none directly. Conditional fangs, 1.4 centimeters fangs on top, 1 centimeters fangs on lower. Average temperature, 100.8 F, 98.6 F. Pulse, 101 BPM, 60 BPM resting. Blood pressure, 150/116, 120 systolic divided by 80 diastolic. Laboratory values. Normal human values listed for comparison. Red blood. Cell count. 6.1 m over meglu Eller, 4.2 minus 5.6 m over meglu Eller. White blood cell count, 5.9 k over millimeter, 3.8 minus 11.0 k per millimeter. 3 hemoglobin, 19 grams per dealer. Hematocrit HCT, 39%, 39 minus 54% coagulation. ACT, 19 seconds, 90 minus 130 30 seconds. APTT, 6.913 seconds, 21 minus 35 seconds. Platelets, 652,000 milliliters, 140,000 minus 450,000. Valor. Bleeding time, 49 seconds, 3 minus 7 minutes. Thrombin time, 5 seconds, 11 minus 15 seconds. Hemodynamic parameters. Cardiac index, 8.8 Ls per minute per nook meter, 2.5 minus 4.2 Ls divided per minute m2. Cardiac output, 13.1 LPM, 4 minus 8 LPM. Mean arterial pressure, 160 millimeters Hg, 70 minus 105 millimeters Xg. Stroke volume, 128 milliliters beat, 60 minus 100 milliliters beat. Arterial values: pH 7.89, 7.35 nitros, 7.45 O2 saturation, 100% 96 nitros, 100% venous values: pH 01, 7.31, 7.41 O2 saturation, 62%, 60 nit 85%. General chemistry: alkaline phosphatase 108 U per liter, 32 nitros, 110. UL ammonia, 12 micromoles per liter, 11 minus 35 micromoles per liter. Calcium, 14 milligrams per day L, 8 minus 11 milligrams per day L. Carbon dioxide, 10 micro per liter, 21 minus 34 micro. Glucose, 705 milligrams per day L, 65 minus 99 milligrams per day L. Iron, 130 micrograms per day L, 52 minus 169 micrograms per day L. Lactic acid, 0.32. MEQLL 0.4 minus 2.3 MEQLOs. Osmolarity, 239 mix mos per leak per glycerin per potassium, 4.0 meters per liter, 3.5 minus 5.5 meters co-sodium, 238 mg per liter, 135 minus 14.8 mg per liter, cholesterol, 40 milligrams per deciliter, 30 minus 75 milligrams per deciliter, triglycerides, 67 mg Dale, 40 minus 170 milligrams per Dale. Everything was in order with what Ellen had told Harold about vampires. Nothing stood out. Zach Giver? What's this kid doing in all this? Why him? He doesn't even sound that interesting, Harold said aloud. It didn't make sense why Marin was worried about this one file. Regardless, he didn't want to test Marin's resolve. Slowly, everything that he was researching about vampires was coming true. Placing himself on the wrong side of that understanding seemed an egregious error. Harold sat back, resting with the file on his lap. He began to think about his conversation with Ida. He wondered if he was able to have a second chance at life. Would he become a doctor? The idea pervaded his mind. It was comforting, knowing that he would be able to take care of people and heal the sick in ways that only his methodical personality could. Harold smiled. It would be a good life. A light knock shook Harold out of his daydream. "Can I come in?" Ryan said with a shy voice. Harold let Ryan in. He was distraught about something. It showed in his eyes. What's the matter? Harold thought he had the last of these talks with Ryan 10 years ago. Every time a girl was involved, things got complicated, and Harold had to find a way of breaking up with the girl for Ryan. Thankfully, he was married, and that was impossible. "Is it a girl?" Harold chuckled. "Yes," Ryan admitted. "Shit," Harold blurted out. "What did you say?" "You never used to curse when I knew you." Ryan was accustomed to hearing Harold be as polite as can be at all times. It's been 10 years, deal with it. Harold was not in the mood to help Ryan again. "Is it your marriage? Another woman?" "Yeah," Ryan sighed. "Well, which is it?" Harold was being forceful. He wanted a quick answer. "Both." Ryan raised his head, hoping for sympathy. "Do you have some time to talk?" Harold bit his lip. He was tired and wanted to mull over issues that related to his own life, not Ryan's. "Can we later?" "Yeah, I guess." Ryan backed down and closed the door, giving Harold his privacy. Harold sat back again. His heart was uneasy, restless over the events of the still young night. There was work to be done. Harold had to compile the stacks of data in his room into a manageable report. Thankfully, without warning, Harold simply passed out. Time went on without Harold. Before he knew it, the world had forgotten him. Hours had gone by without any knock or disturbance to his door. He was purely left alone, to sleep as he was. This period did not last. Harold awoke to pressure on his chest. There was a cold, soft hand laying on him. Without opening his eyes, the calm scent of vanilla filled his breath. There was a cool sensation on his arm. It was pleasant. He wasn't sure who it was, but there was someone in bed with him. He knew who he wanted it to be, just not who it was. "I know you're awake." "It's the hearing. Your pulse picked up the moment you caught my perfume." Ada's voice was relaxed as she spoke from beside Harold. Harold kept his eyes closed. "Does this mean you're no longer mad at me for whatever I did?" "It depends," Ada remarked. Harold opened his eyes and turned to Ada. His arm was around her without realizing it. "On what?" Ada sat up and removed Harold's arm from her. "If you have to ask, what did I do? What's wrong?" Harold sat up. His heart raced as he stared into Ada's entrancing purple eyes. "I reiterate my previous statement." Ada stood up. "That's not fair." Harold stood up as well. "I know it's not." Ada took Harold's left hand in hers. "But I don't have to be fair. I have to be honest. I won't allow myself to do anything else. Is that why you're here now?" Harold slid his hand over Ida's. It was cool to the touch. He could tell she enjoyed the warmth of his skin against hers. For a scientist, you have your moments. Ida backed away, pulling Harold's hand with her. "I've come to invite you out." Ida opened the door. "We've all decided to let you have some beauty rest." Now it's time you walk alongside my path. At least for tonight. Harold looked down. He was in the same lab coat he had slept in for the past 4.5 hours. Can I change first? It's not going to matter. You've had that coffee stain since before Penny's announcement party. No one's going to care now. Ida gestured to a crescent-shaped stain on Harold's coat, where he rested his cup for a moment. It would be better to be sure of your choice now than to later regret it. Harold nodded and followed Ida past the security checkpoint out to the main elevator. Her cold hand in his was pulling him along. She was faster than him, but he knew she was moving slower than normal because of it. They made their way downstairs and across the busy street at a few minutes past 1 in the morning. The lights were dim in comparison to the illumination in the lab. There was a neon glow to everything except Ida's eyes. They appeared almost normal as she walked in front of Harold. As they approached the bar, Harold noticed a crowd gathered around a table in the back. He could see Adonis hitting back shots, one after another next to a rather large man. Adonis was not losing. This should be interesting. Harold chuckled to himself. No, this will be typical, Ida corrected. He does this almost every night for money. Harold stopped and leaned into Ida's left ear from behind her shoulder. I don't understand. Is he betting on drinking? What's the matter? You never went to a college party where they had drinking contests. Ida turned to Harold's right ear. Her breath was cool on his skin. Harold took a moment to regain his composure. No. Actually, I spent most nights sleeping after the lectures. You never studied for the tests? Ida wondered. Never needed to. I got it all from listening. I didn't even take any notes. Harold felt the difference in temperature between Ida's skin and his. There was a chill around her that he was inhaling. It was intoxicating. Then this will be entertaining. Ada smiled. Let's get closer. Ada led Harold to the main table in the back of the bar. Penny was there, not drinking, but present next to Laurel. Ellen was there with Crystal in his lap. Beside them was Jenna with Michelle laying into her left shoulder with Jenna's arms cradling. Cherry was clearly drunk, kicking back with both arms spread back behind the chairs next to her. Last was Paige and Ryan, appearing far too comfortable in the other's space. Harold took a moment to find the peculiarity in the scene. Pay attention, you'll miss it. Ida gently pointed to the drinking contest. Adonis seemed far more hammered than the obviously larger man challenging him. Quickly and without notice, Adonis moved to scratch his inner arm. Harold would have missed it entirely if Ida hadn't said anything. For a second, Adonis's face changed. It was unmistakable. He was sober. Harold leaned into Ida's ear. I thought since you guys had a high concentration of alcohol in your blood, you could easily get drunk. That doesn't look the case here. What's going on? Ida pressed her back against Harold's chest, with her entire body to his. We don't produce adrenaline suddenly like you do, but we do react to pain. What does that have anything to do with what he just did? Harold couldn't think with Ida's quenching body against his. It's fight or flight in a way. The difference is that the adrenaline in our system is already there. We only need a reason to be made aware of it. Ida raised her left arm and reached behind Harold's head, gesturing with her eyes, to the spot on Adonis's arm where he scratched himself. Pain activates it, clearing the drunken feeling from our minds. Beautiful, Harold said strongly. Ada wasn't sure as to what Harold was talking about, though she wasn't going to ignore it. She turned around to face him in the dark bar. For a moment, her eyes appeared purple again in the dim lighting. Good answer. She lifted up on her toes and kissed Harold on the lips. Ida's lips were soft, nothing like Harold was expecting. They weren't as cold either, feeling warmer than the rest of her skin. He gathered his arms across her back and held her up, prolonging the kiss. She was surprisingly heavy. Harold remembered that her weight was never listed in the medical files, nor any of the others. His lack of concentration on the embrace began to show as Ida pulled away. We'll talk later about that. Ida returned to watching the contest. Harold had seemed to forget the last few minutes of time. The kiss was bliss before his mute life. It was stunning. She was everything he was missing. His thoughts slowly came back to his head. It was strange as to why she felt heavy. Harold always imagined vampires being light and weighing practically nothing. The reality of the myth was coming to pass over his situation. Suddenly the larger man shoved Adonis in the chest. He was pissed. His dark black short hair and rippling muscles on a 6'8" frame would have intimidated any other man, apart from a vampire or Adonis. "What the fuck was that?" The man was horribly drunk but still had the coordination to stand and curse. "You're half my size. There's no way you should be sanding right now. You've cheated." Adonis was obviously sober now, at least enough to talk back. "Just admit you've lost and pay me what you owe. Or what?" The drunk man pressed his right finger against Adonis's chest. Without warning and with seemingly no one able to recognize the sheer speed of his actions, Adonis took the man's finger and bent it backwards, flat onto his wrist. His hand held the finger tight in this awkward position and squeezed as he stepped forward into the man's personal space. Adonis whispered in the man's face loud enough for him to hear. "Or you can learn to become a lefty." The man began to scream. Adonis stopped him with a quick tap to the side of his neck. The man collapsed to the ground and was out. Everyone cheered for Adonis's victory. "Did he just do what I think he did?" Harold asked Ida. "Maybe." Ida chuckled to herself. "It depends on what exactly you think he did." "A variation on a Vulcan neck pinch," Harold said as Adonis helped pick the man up from the floor and set him on a chair. "You could call it that." He rendered a pressure point while making it appear he was patting the man on the shoulder. "Since we can move quicker than most people can perceive, it's easy to assault someone, especially if they're drunk. More so if all the witnesses are drunk." Ida led Harold to a darkly lit booth so they could talk. "Okay, I have to ask. What's up with silver? We haven't had a chance to test it in the lab because you don't trust me with it. What makes silver deadly to a vampire?" Harold was curious. "It's the silver nitrate in the metal." Iada realized that Harold wasn't making the connection. "You've studied the workup on our blood from our medical files? You didn't notice anything odd about them?" Harold huffed. "Of course I noticed." He paused. "Everything was off." Iada lowered her head with a sigh. "You're losing points." "Huh?" Harold was confused. "Besides the high level of glucose in us, we have a high pH value and sodium content," Iada explained. "Now what does that tell you?" Harold drew a blank. "It's a chemical reaction," Iada smiled. Harold began to understand. "You're talking about the byproduct of sodium hydroxide in your blood." "Yes." Ada was pleased. "It causes a violent reaction when introduced to the silver. I've seen videos about that. It looks like an inflammatory process." "How does it kill a vampire?" Harold was familiar with a few old science videos that involved a beaker instantly filling with the compound. "It doesn't. It tries, but our blood is too strong to let it. The blood immediately attempts to subdue the reaction. It prevents any inflammation and begins healing at the site it's exposed." Ayade enjoyed talking science with Harold more than she had expected. It was nice to still find out things about herself. Okay, that answers why vampires have an affliction to silver. You can't heal the rest of the injury caused by the weapon if your body is having to deal with the reaction at the same time, Harold stated. "You know you're the first person to ever put all this together?" Iada smiled at Harold. "Really?" Harold blushed. "Yes. Until now, silver has just been explained as a substitution for wooden stakes and garlic. Little did anyone know how detrimental silver was to us all along," Iada chuckled to herself. "Well, it probably had something to do with the fact that we spread the false rumor." "That was smart," Harold complimented Edda. "Wasn't it?" Edda slid her hands over to Harold. Harold held Iada's fingers in one hand and her forearm in the other. The cold of the steel grommets ran down his spine. It was a structure that was nearly impossible on a human. "What about vampires? Why does silver hurt them?" Harold wanted any reason he could find to extend the conversation. Holding Ida's hands was intoxicating. It's a completely different set of reactions. It's more like an allergy with a vampire. The silver introduces it into the immediate area, and the body reacts by focusing on the elimination of the particulates. The outcome is that regeneration is slowed to a crawl. Their bodies can't even release the anesthetic they are so prized for carrying. Ida sighed, prized. I didn't know a vampire would ever envy a vampire. From the results I've come to based on your blood alone. Harold's comment came out as flattery. Ida actually blushed, then quickly returned to her normal composure. It's simple. They can block pain. We cannot, ever. Did something happen? Harold asked. Something always happens. I'm over 200 years old, Harold. If something didn't, I'd be dead inside. Ida let go of Harold's hand. Harold sat up in the booth. Then what did happen? The night after I became a vampire, I knew something was different. Ida recalled. You didn't realize you had become a vampire? Harold found that hard to understand from what Ida had told him. No? She killed me and whispered into my ear something about my life being a personal joke. Ida was somber. Her white hair was short and framed her red eyes well. She was fast and killed my friends first. I tried to reach out for them as she tore out their hearts. She broke my arms, then toyed with me for a few minutes. All I remember after that was a faint message and waking up a few days later. Ada paused. The worst of it was a week later. Thinking back, it was my fault. What was? Your friends' deaths? Harold said the wrong thing. Again. Ida slid away from Harold a bit. No. The deaths of the 7 family members that followed at my hands. She took a moment of silence. Harold began to understand. I needed blood and didn't know what to do yet. My body took over for me to keep me alive. Ada tightened her left fist. A small line of blood crept down her wrist. It was the first time I used my gift. The blood dissolved back into her skin while the puncture wound in her hand closed. Somewhere inside me, I didn't want them to feel what I was doing to them. I didn't want them to feel the pain. One by one, they fell to me. First the parents, then the older children. I especially didn't want the younger twins to suffer. An expression of lamentation glazed over Ida's face. It was guilt. In truth, they didn't. I took it from them. Harold wasn't sure how to respond. He listened intently out of respect and dignity for what Ida had gone through. I keep thinking how they must have felt. To them, death must have been a bad dream. With no physical reference to what I was doing to them, it must have been maddening. They witnessed their body's destruction without reaction. Ida paused, her eyes fixed in the distance for a moment. I do know what they should have felt, what I stole from them. The pain of the moment that eases the transition between this life and the next. I robbed the reaction of adrenaline, the endorphins, their ability to be removed from the event. I made it so they had to watch, fully conscious of what I was doing to them. That is a hell that I would never wish on anyone. Ada released her hand. Harold absorbed what Ida had told him. You don't have a choice about what you've done, only what you get to do. Ida turned her head to face Harold. There was a small tear in her left eye. The light from the distant bar lit it to a fine crystal. Harold gently wiped it and displayed it on the tip of his finger. There's no need to bleed an amethyst for a memory. You're too true of a gem to be doing such a foolish thing. Harold slid over to Iada and put his left arm around her. His warmth affected her. It was obvious. How'd you get to be so smooth? Iada leaned her head into Harold's chest. Harold smiled. I just told you what you told me. He grinned wider. Only with a bit more relevance to your situation.